this was a challenging lesson because it was helping students understand the Gettysburg Address through a close read of that address. And the standards call for figuring out what the Gettysburg Address means by just looking at the text. So my challenge was, I just knew that was going to be impossible for second language learners. My challenge was not to give away the text to the English language learners, but at the same time provide them with the background information they needed to understand the text. That was my challenge. That's where I started. And I just backtracked from there. Like, what background knowledge did the ELs need to really understand references in the Gettysburg Address, like 20 years ago? What does fourscore mean? So vocabulary also, but then what does it refer to? Which got us back to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We had to explain to kids what that meant. We had to talk about phrases in the Declaration of Independence that reappear in the Gettysburg Address. So, for example, in trying to script that lesson developed for mainstream kids by the standards folks, I got into, began to get an idea of what was needed for ELs. So giving them the background knowledge they needed, giving them access to the language used in the text itself, which entailed figuring out what vocabulary words they needed to understand, what methods you should use to teach certain kinds of vocabulary words. It's pretty complicated, right? Some vocabulary words are archaic. The kids need to understand what those words are, but they don't need to spend a lot of time on those words because they won't see them anymore. So, for example, we decided to gloss those words. There are other words that appear frequently in text now that are also important for understanding the Gettysburg Address. How do we teach those? So those words got more of a focus. The syntax in the Gettysburg Address is very complicated. How do you unpack that syntax for kids? So these are all things that sort of had to happen before kids did a cold read of the Gettysburg Address so that they were prepared to work with that text itself.